Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you tuned back in. Unfortunately, YouTube kicked us on the live stream limit there. So unfortunately, we got cut off from our post-game interviews, but we're going to go back down to the rink in just a moment to get you set up there with some post-game interviews and things of that nature. Once again, you're watching Jets hockey here on YouTube, and we didn't mean to leave you high and dry in that sort of a scenario there as we cut away ringside. But you heard from Lucas Spizziri, who was our first guest here on the post-game show. He talked about, grading his own play and how he kind of felt about that. Was a bit humble in that sense. But again, YouTube kicked us off from the broadcast there, but we're bringing post-game interviews in just a moment. So thanks again for sticking with us as we come through. We'll be back with post-game interviews in just a moment. Hopefully we'll be able to get Brody Latkin back again. I believe we had Tucker Bowes scheduled to come as well. So if you're catching us here on the rebroadcast, we appreciate it. If not, I'm sure Coach Hill will send this second link out for all of you there, but we apologize for the interruption in the broadcast. But in just a couple of moments, we'll have some post-game commentary and breakdown. Once again, your final score, the Jets are able to take it by a score of 4-2, 1-1 after, for most of the game. Then after the second period, it was 1-1 your score. Then the Jets get the first goal of the game or the first goal of the third period to make it 2-1. Then get the second goal, make it 3-1. But then the Snipers stormed back, made it 3-2 before ultimately the Jets were able to get that fourth goal on the board to pull themselves away. Tremendous goaltending, great kind of all around. And in a moment, hopefully we'll have some post-game interviews and analysis for you as well. So stay tuned for just a moment as we'll try to get connected rinkside and hopefully bring you some more of the players and their commentary, things like that. If you're watching along in the comments, let us know what you thought, not just of the Jets' performance, but what you appreciate about the broadcast in general. We're excited to have the opportunity to bring you these games and hopefully to bring you some post-game opportunities as well. But again, the players are headed off the rink at the moment and head back into the dressing room. I'm sure Coach Hill is going to have a couple of comments for them. And this game in particular, again, was the 7th-8 matchup and ended up being a pretty good one. I thought the game yesterday for the Jets was one of the better games of the entire tournament. But it seems now that we're down just outside the locker room. In just a moment, we'll be able to get some of our interviewees set and ready to go. So we see the feed back up live. So in just a moment, we'll head back down towards the locker room and get some post-game reaction and things like that. So it looks like I have Nicolino Johnson ready to go. So we'll get the headset on him and we'll get started in just a moment. Again, you're watching the Jets post-game show. And as we get set up and ready to go here, we'll add you in. Hey there, appreciate you spending some time with us here on the post-game show. First and foremost, congratulations. I know 7th place wasn't what you were looking for when you started the tournament, but how are you feeling after your last 2 games, probably the 2 best games of the tournament?
Feeling great. I mean, like really good passes, back checking on point, forward checking great. The coach's strategy works, dump and chase. Worked really hard.
And yeah, I thought your line in particular today with Morgan Corson and Weingartner, I felt that you guys were really able to kind of set the tone. Now, I know Weingartner wasn't your line mate throughout the entire tournament. So just speaking of you and Morgan Corson there, what were you doing so well that made you guys be successful?
Again, dump and chase, coach's strat, and yeah, we worked really hard. So it was kind of weird at first, but we got used to it.
And final question for you here. In that second period, it looks like the officiating, it got a little questionable. There's a couple calls either side that could have gone either way. How as a team were you guys able to recover from that? Because that is something when the officiating starts to get a little wayside that can really sink a team. But you guys were able to stay strong and come out. So, how did you guys overcome that and still stay strong?
Well, did, the coach told us to take deep breaths. That helped a lot. Relax, so we're not all like fired up. Yeah, the reffing was terrible, but it motivated us to score more goals. So yeah.
Nice. Well, I appreciate the honesty. I'll try to keep you from getting fined with the officials' comments there. But thank you so much for joining us here on the postgame show. And so Nicolino Johnson joined us there. We'll let him go and get off to the airport there and get ready to head on home. But you heard a lot of players say, Coach Hill tried to calm them down, trying to keep them, settled in, and not get overwhelmed. And he did just that. So you saw that second period. It looked like it might get by the wayside. But again, Nicolino Johnson and Morgan Corson on that line with Weingartner really started to bring things together and was, one of those, lines that, right after time, came in and, was one that really changed the energy for them and really kind of brought things together. And so we have another player hopping on the headset here as we get started, and we'll take a look. So this is going to be Nolan Weingartner. Nolan joins us now. Nolan, thank you so much for joining us here on the post-game show. In this game in particular, you got shifted around throughout the tournament, but this line in particular, you got put on a line that I thought was one of the better ones. Can you talk about the experience playing with your line mates and what it was like playing with them?
I really just think that it was just a great experience overall because we were hustling, passing, getting shots on goal. So I just think it was just fun and trying things new.
And as a team, I know you guys don't often get to practice together or play together often. What's it like in a situation like this in a tournament where you kind of have to almost relearn each other quite quickly? Is there anything you guys do to try to bond a bit quicker or to maybe have some fun off the ice to really come together? Because you guys looked like a good team out there.
Yeah, I really just think just talking in the locker room is good for bonding. And then when you're on the ice, you kind of don't know what to do until the third shift. So it's just hard but exciting at the same time.
And all of your teammates talked about the emotion, particularly in this game in particular, that you guys really had to keep your emotion in check. You personally, as a player, how do you make sure that you have a level head while playing out there?
I honestly just think about, just the game, and not really the refs or anything, and just kind of channel my emotions into playing hard.
Yeah, and finally, I want to ask you about your goaltenders because especially today, Maverick Cool stepped up. Lucas Egan the other night. Talk a little bit about the play of your goaltenders and how instrumental they were for you guys finishing in 7th today.
I think really that Maverick, he's improved a lot, and he just did I don't know, he was really good today, and I just think that kind of helped everyone, by hyping them up a little bit.
Awesome. Well, a spectacular tournament by you, and thank you so much for joining us here on the postgame show.
Thank you.
So that was Nolan Weingartner that joined us just outside the locker room. And you heard him talk about the goaltenders for a little bit and things like that. You wonder about a team coming in, has two strong goaltenders, which one's going to get the net. But I love the fact that he talked about that, they really came together off the ice as well. And we have Brody Lackenreed joining us now. Brody, we got cut off from our initial interview, so I'm glad we were able to get you back on. Thank you so much for joining us here on the postgame show. So, Brody, we talked a little bit about before we got cut off. So just in case people didn't hear the answer, I wanted to talk about special teams again, in particular the power play. What were you guys seeing out there that made you successful?
Yeah, so their two forwards are going down off. So we had open space at the top, which allowed us to make passes and move around, and then that created opportunities for tips and backward passes.
And I also want to talk a little bit about the defense starting the offense. You said you were feeling good after skating that long. But the interesting part when you're using your defense for the offense with playing with 5 defensemen is if one guy gets tired, it tends to kind of slow everybody down. How did you guys work as a full 5-man unit to make sure that you weren't tiring yourself out there shift after shift?
We worked with a 5-man unit because some of our forwards they could play D and some of our D could play forward. So we switched it around so none of our D were tired.
And we've heard a lot about the coaches, and I also saw Lucas Spazieri jump in there, get a little bit more camera time. But we've heard a lot of talk about the coaches keeping everyone level-headed, keeping everyone, focused. But I want to talk about your captains and your assistant captains and the leadership group within the room. What did your teammates do to make sure that you guys are having fun out there and ultimately being successful?
Our teammates pumped us up. They helped us. They made us feel good about ourselves, and they made us become more of a team and not get away from playing hockey.
Awesome. Well, Brody, thank you so much for joining us here on the post-game show, and have a great, safe trip back. So, that in particular, you heard, you talked to the coaches and the players all kind of said it was all about, staying calm, staying cool, and making sure that they didn't go overboard or anything like that. And in particular, there's one player that had a tremendous tournament that's going to join us here on the post-game show. It seemed to be filling the back of the net at a pretty furious pace. It's Caleb Carlance. And Caleb, thank you so much for joining us here on the post-game show. How you feeling after a 4-game tournament?
Pretty good. I thought I did pretty good. I think it's been really good. I think we were passing a lot over the puck, and yeah.
And so I know 7th place is not ideally where you wanted to end up. You always come into a tournament trying to win the whole thing, but you guys played a phenomenal tournament. In fact, if it wasn't for a couple of tiebreakers, you would end up in the 5th place game. Going forward, if you have a roster like this, how high can this team go? Do you think this is a team that can win tournament after tournament?
Yes, I think this is I personally think it should have possible.
Night. Yeah, sorry, was having a little trouble hearing you. So if you want to speak up just a tiny bit, make sure all our audience at home can hear you. Last question I have for you. You had a chance to play with Brody Feather and Chase Clausen as well. Talk a little about your line mates, because I thought you guys were one of the more effective lines throughout the tournament.
Yeah, I think we passed along. We've been talking ozone a lot, and I thought we could have scored way more goals than we did, but it's whatever, and I thought we scored a lot. So.
Now, I asked Lucas Spazieri how he felt about his game, and he graded himself pretty humble. So I'll ask you the same question. How would you grade your performance here in this tournament?
I would say like 7 out of 10.
Hey, 7 out of 10 is not bad. We'll take that any night of the week. Thank you so much for joining us, Caleb, here on the postgame show.
Thank you, you too.
It's so great with him. So now I think we're going to have the captain. Then we're going to have JJ Kilpatrick join us in just a moment. And I'm eager to talk to the captain as I see he joined him now. JJ, thanks so much for joining us here on the post-game show. You wore the captaincy for this tournament here. And I'm sure this tournament in particular actually tested you a lot. We heard some reports of some interactions at the team hotel. We saw some bad officiating. How did you as the captain help bring this team together to ultimately make you successful?
I just had to make sure that everybody knew that we were going to be okay, and that although the calls were not really towards our side all that much, that we could get through them. And if we play as a team, maybe we wouldn't get as many calls, and we could put the puck in the back of the net as we did.
Yeah, it certainly was a team effort throughout. Let's start on the back end with your goaltenders. You had Egan and Cool. It seemed like every single game there was a couple of big save opportunities that they were able to hit. How impactful were your goaltenders here for your performance?
They were very impactful. They made a lot of big saves, just like the one that Cool made today, where he made the save and then went off the post. If it wasn't for him, then we would have been in a worse position. Maybe we would have gone down. They could have tied the game, and the momentum would have been crazy if Cool or Terry couldn't have made the saves that they made.
And, when you have a goaltender that you have confidence in, it helps to keep you in game after game. For you, what was the toughest stretch of this tournament? You guys were down in a couple of games, you had a couple, but was there one part in particular of any of the 4 games that you can point to and say, that's when it could have went really, really bad, but we rallied from there. Is there any moment that comes to mind?
I think game I went to for, I think that if it wasn't for our defense, that everything could have went so downhill. But we kept solid on the defense, and we played as a team that game. So we rallied back, and we made sure we got the win together as a team.
And let's talk a little bit, I don't say like off the ice in particular, but how much fun is it to get back with this group of players and get a chance to go on the ice? I know it's not your everyday team, so how much do you look forward to getting that Jets logo back on and hanging out with the team?
It's the best, it's the most fun hockey I've played in a long time. It's just really fun to play with a bunch of guys that you've never really play with before, get to know them, and have fun with a bunch of kids that you get to know and love throughout the case of just one small tournament.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. I know 7th place isn't where you wanted to finish, but I think you should be proud of your efforts. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So it was JJ Kilpatrick, captain of this Jets squad. I believe we might have another one of the captains jump in, or perhaps we'll segue over to the coaches. We'll see who comes up next to our post-game interview show. But you heard to a player they talk about, in this situation, the team coming together sort of late and trying to get up to speed. And we'll certainly ask the coaches about that in particular. Really the only game that didn't quite go the way the Jets wanted it on the scoreboard, but really from a systematic standpoint was that second game of the tournament, an early puck drop, and they just never really found their legs underneath. However, there was a couple more games in this tournament, maybe a longer round robin and things like that. I felt like the Jets really started to find their stride, and you really were starting to see them in all aspects of the game. We talked about the special team struggles a bit earlier, in the tournament. They've overcame that, and now I see RJ Hill has the headset on. RJ, thanks so much for joining us here on the post game show. I was just saying, you guys really only had the one game that didn't really go your way, but it seemed you guys got stronger period over period, shift after shift. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel that probably your best hockey came at the end of your last game?
Yes, I have seen that. Except for the first game where we came out really strong, it seemed that we kind of went out. We didn't really do that well at the beginning, but then we kind of got stronger as we learned what our opponent was doing and how to beat them, and eventually we were able to capitalize on it and win.
And one thing we've heard kind of a narrative going around was the mental toughness required for this tournament. We saw it today, knowing it was going to be a chippy game and the officiating got the wayside. We saw it in your second game when you guys had a disastrous second period. You wear a letter for this team. You're one of the captains on this team. How do you make sure that your team stays level-headed so that they can succeed?
I think just keep them focused on the game. Don't think about other things. Focus on the game. Think positive, not negative, and just see what we need to do and how to do it right.
And I want to talk a little bit about your teammates on this particular time in particular. Obviously, it's not your day-to-day team. I know you're on the YZ Club in Minnesota there. But when you get together with the Jets, what's it feel like to be able to see these group of players again, wear that logo, and have some fun on and off the ice? Tell me what you feel about this team.
I love this team. It's very nice. I like meeting a bunch of new players and old players that I used to play with. And it's very fun to play together, win games, do some, run around hotels, and a bunch of other things. So, yeah, I love this team.
And I heard you guys got into a little bit of fun out there at the hotel as well, which helped raise the temperature for this game. Final thing for you, going forward, I just want to talk about you in particular. What would you like to improve on in your game? I know, you're the type of player that looks back at how you play and you try to get better. Is there anything you're going to take away from this tournament that you'd love to get better at?
I know one of the things, not really, I haven't seen it that much in this tournament, but I do want to kind of work on my shot, get better power, get better accuracy, so I can, so when the puck comes up to me at the point, I can just hammer it down and get top shot goal or a good deflection.
Well, it sounds like the prescription for that one is to shoot a bunch of pucks in the driveway there, so I know you're going to head home and get to work. Thank you so much for joining us here on the post-game show. So RJ Hill, one of the captains, I believe we're going to get a chance to talk to the coaches coming up next. I believe we're going to have, I believe Chris Carlance joining us here on the post-game show and get a recap here. As the 7th place squad, they finished in 7th, wasn't where they wanted to be, obviously, but this team played well enough to perhaps get in that 5th place game if a couple tiebreakers go. And really, it was one period that ended up sinking this team. But even in that period alone, there was a lot good to come from it. We do have the assistant coach, Chris Carlance, joining us now. Thank you so much for joining us here on the post-game show.
Absolutely.
So, Chris, in a tournament like this, obviously you go over systems and stuff prior, but it's not like this team gets weeks and weeks to practice together. As a coaching staff, what do you do from that game one through the last game to try to make sure that you're improving shift after shift?
We look for kids that are playing strong and doing the right things. It's really difficult. We get very little practice time. But the little bit we do get, we get to view them and see the skills that they've got and where their strengths are, and we play to their strengths.
Yeah, and we saw a couple of different line combinations, a couple of changes, both people from the defense moving to forward and things like that. It's got to be a great benefit to have a roster full of players that seemingly can go in any sort of position. But I want to talk about your defensive core in particular, just for a small moment there. You ran 5 throughout most of the tournament. I was hoping from their play because it seemed no matter what pairing was out there, you were getting some good contributions from your defense, especially on the breakout.
Absolutely. We did run 5. Every now and then we pulled a couple kids back to help them fatten it up, maybe get a little rest on the legs. Sometimes they hang out a little long, but we got them wrapped in pretty good. I think the defense worked really well together. They did what they needed to do. They kept the house clear as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, you saw net front presence on both sides. On the offensive end, majority of your goals came from that slot presence. On the defensive end, you had 2 great goaltenders this tournament. They were making the easy saves, and if a rebound or so poked through, you're seeing a lot of jet sticks there. Last thing I'd love to touch on with you, we knew coming to this game it might get a little bit chippy, it might get a little bit emotional. Throughout a tournament, there's ups and downs. In particular, one moment that stuck out to me was the timeout that the team called in the second period. I was going to ask Coach Hill about it, but that to me seemed like it was about kind of resetting and making sure you're level-headed. How much do you try to manage the emotion? Because sometimes you can get some good out of players that might be angry or overexcited, but it just takes one kind of going off the rails. So what do you look for as a coaching staff to try to keep them all level-headed and in the right headspace to succeed?
Personally, I like to look for them working on each other, being positive, staying as a team. I think that's the most important part. When you get a kid that gets a little too carried away or starts to get upset, it can cause a snowball effect. So I really try to squash them as fast as humanly possible. I want our team to gel and be consistent with each other. If they start to nitpick, they can pull themselves apart. So keeping them positive is a very big key, which is what we try to do with the second period break.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Coach. Thank you so much for the time on the post-game show, and congratulations. I know 7th place wasn't the goal coming into it, but I think you should be proud of your efforts.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Have a great, safe trip home and things like that. We're going to have Coach Hill, the head coach, coming up in just a moment. It'll wrap up our post-game show here. So thank you all for tuning in for the extended post-game show. We apologize. We got kicked off the main feed a bit earlier, but we're going to get Coach Hill in just a moment here. I see him getting the headset on and getting ready. So Coach Hill, thank you so much for obviously taking the time to join us after every game, especially now here at the end of the tournament. To a man, your players all said that the biggest advantage you had was their mental ability, was the mental game. There was a couple of other players on other teams that skated a bit stronger, maybe a little bit heavier, but the fact that you guys kept yourself level-headed in the face of adversity is really what helped make you successful. Is that something that you try to lead with first with your coaching style, or if you could just touch a little bit on how important that was for you this tournament?
Thanks, Shawnee. I would agree. We definitely have one of the more mental teams that are out there. It's something that we strive on. We look to focus their heads. It's one thing with the junior elite that really sets, and I try to set the tone with, is be able to look at all these kids that come from many different areas and have them think the game, learn the game. We don't get to practice a lot. The skating goes back to that. The mental aspects, we're going to look at. It was a tough one today. I can tell you, Shawnee, shout out to my coaching staff, Coach Chris, Coach Travis. I particular Coach Travis today, he was the Coach Hill psychiatrist today. It was a tough one for me. We were able to settle down, and I was really proud of the coaching staff, really proud of the parents as well as the kids. They overall just bar none fantastic, and thank you to you, Shawnee, as well as to your camera class.
Yeah, and that's one thing you notice about the Jets program is it's not just a system. It's not just a select group of players. It really kind of comes together as a full community, kind of through the broadcast or through the coaching, things like that. In particular, in a tournament like this, we really want to touch on and maybe speak to some of the other coaches out there of kind of what your strategy is, what your mindset is when you have a team doesn't have a ton of practice time and you have to get them to really come together very quickly while still being able as a coach to make adjustments throughout. How do you manage that of trying to find who has the legs, maybe who has it this weekend without having just to constantly line juggle and not really get any momentum?
Youth hockey players, they're ultimately out here for a reason. And not all that reason, we always say to have fun, but they're all here for different reasons. Some of them, this is their support system. Some of them, this is what their parents did, what their friends do. Some of them are here because this is where they're most accepted. Find the reason the players are here and play off that. And I will simply say that it's about keeping it simple sometimes, and that's not just the basics of what you simply do hockey. Pick something to focus on. Find something the kids can rally around. We always joke about, we see Miracle and the great Herb Brooks, and he said to Craig Patrick, you got to get close to these guys because I'm going to be the common enemy. That may not be the appropriate way to go about it, but find something common they can rally around. Find that commonality, and that's how you get through these kids. And ultimately, they're all individuals. We're a team together, but you have to look at each kid and make sure that you as a coach understand who that player is and what you can do. It may be a small victory, it may be a big victory. But every kid needs to walk out of this rink knowing that he or she had a victory, and they want to come back.
And Coach Hill, I hear the voice is gone. I know you were yelling, not quite instructions, not quite the officials, but I know you're a very vocal coach and constantly communicating with your squad. So I don't want to take up too much more of you, but I want to say congratulations. I know 7th place wasn't the goal here, but I have a feeling that you feel pretty proud still of your efforts from this team. Is that correct?
I'm always proud of this team, Shawnee, and whether it be said, my goal was to have 19 players, actually 20 players, unfortunately. I do want to mention out to Chucky, Braden David, who was unable to make it, unfortunately. He was unable to make it out and join us with the circumstances. But thank you to all the players. And my goal is to have 20 kids walk out of this rink, and the first thing they say is, I want to come back onto that rink, and we did that this weekend. Congratulations, everybody. Shawnee, out to you. Fantastic work with you and your crew. John Scoro, Simon doing the stats. Thank you all to you. To all the parents, thank you. I'm going to stop talking because this voice is going to go. Thanks again. I look forward to seeing Shawnee in the future.
Yeah, you talk about leaving it all out. Coach Hill leaving all of his voice out there. Thank you so much for joining us here on the post-game show. And thank all of you for tuning in, whether you watched us live or watched us on the replay. If you like what we're doing here and you enjoy having these games broadcasted, feel free to let Coach Hill know, and we'll try to see if we can set up some more opportunities when they are available. As he mentioned, John and Simon, my crew, helped me out at the rink in Minnesota. Special thanks to you, and a special thanks to the Jets Hockey Club as well for giving us the opportunity to broadcast these games in the coverage of the 2021 Easton Cup. Thank you once again for joining us here on YouTube. Be sure, like the video, comment, and you can even subscribe to Coach Hill's channel. I know he has plenty of great content coming out, not only from his Jet squad, but from a couple of his other coaching posts as well. From all of us here on the broadcast, I am Shawnee Hill. Thank you once again for tuning in to Jets Hockey. Once again, the Jets take home 7th place here from the 2021 Easton Cup. And you got to watch it all here on YouTube. Have a great rest of the day, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to Jets Hockey.